How do you know if your productivity mindset is toxic? Well, if you clicked on this video, that's a pretty good sign it might be. So keep watching because I'm gonna share 3 signs that you are in a toxic relationship to your productivity and 2 strategies for overcoming it. Let's go. When a writer I was working with used the term toxic productivity to describe the pressure she was feeling to meet her writing deadlines, I had never heard that term before. I had heard of toxic positivity, but not toxic productivity. And sadly, as soon as I heard this term, toxic productivity, I recognized myself in it. You know, we live in a culture where hustling is really prized, where working in spite of our feelings, our sickness, or our grief is viewed as admirable. I'll say sometimes if you log into a Zoom meeting when you're sick, people will often celebrate you. And I probably don't have to tell you what this leads to because you can guess. You know, maybe you've experienced it. For me, it leads to burnout, headaches, being unhappy without knowing why, and a lot more. So here are a few signs, if you're anything like me, that things may be out of whack, that you may be currently having a toxic relationship to productivity. Sign number 1, when you consider meditating or doing a breathing exercise or taking a break, like taking a walk, watching a TV show, reading for pleasure, going to a yoga class, your next thought is, I don't have time. Even if it's like a 10-minute exercise, you think, I don't have time. That's sign number 1, and that's a pretty glaring sign. Sign number 2, you are constantly busy, but you feel like you aren't doing enough, or like you are letting down someone or something. I mean, it doesn't even have to be an identifiable person. It can just be a vague sense of letting down someone or something. And sign number 3, it feels like if you stop, you won't start back. Like you need so much rest that no rest would ever be enough. Or maybe like a month-long vacation could be enough, but who has the time for that? If any of these resonate, today I want to share in this video 2 of my favorite tools for getting out of toxic productivity. Tip number 1 is to write it out. Now, this is probably not what you expected me to say. You know, it's not doing yoga or meditating or taking a nap or a walk, although all of those are excellent choices, I think, and do often yank me off of the hamster wheel if that's what I need. But this approach of writing it out is actually in some ways easier than those things. And for me, it's more directly effective at combating the mindset that perpetuates toxic productivity in the first place. Okay, quick story. A friend who is a writer was recently facing some serious fraud syndrome. And even when I reminded her that she's a best-selling author who makes her living off of books, it didn't help. Which I get, because sometimes insecurity, runs deeper than just external validation. So I was encouraging her to keep working on the book she's writing because it's wonderful, and I know she actually does want to write it. And she surprised me by asking me, why do you write? I've lost the point. That's what she said. Why do you write? I've lost the point. And I had to think about this for a while. It used to be that I wanted, fame and glory, which is very Enneagram 3 of me, by the way. I wanted the status of published author. But that was never the whole story because there are, of course, easier ways to fame than writing. And I didn't try to become like a figure skater or train in the luge. I know I did just imply that figure skating is easier than writing, but I know that's probably not true. The truth is that I have always struggled with being present in the present moment. And maybe this is, common for a lot of us. Like many people, I escape the present into my phone, into future plans, into my work. But when I write, I have to be present. The written page is like looking in a mirror, and not a skinny mirror. I can't avoid my bullshit. If I don't show up fully as I write, it shows. It shows in the writing. It's limp. It reads as false. It doesn't have energy. I'm bored by it. All those things. And in this way, writing forces me to be present, almost as effectively as my toddler, who immediately detects any shift in my attention and reaches up to grab my cheek and turn my face back toward him. So I told my friend this about how writing helps me be present. And I've since realized that this may be why the best tool I have found to combat toxic productivity for myself is writing. Now, I don't mean productive writing, and that's a very important distinction. I'm not talking about working on a book or story or essay. I'm talking about writing out what I'm feeling without judgment. Why am I on the hamster wheel? What am I feeling in this moment? How do I want to feel? When I sit down and free write my way through these questions, even if it's just for 5 or 10 minutes, I always come out feeling better and empowered to slow down. Again, it's more effective for me than a 60-minute yoga class or a 5-day vacation. And I love yoga, so that's saying a lot. It truly is a very effective antidote. And I also think this is partly because writing is how I signal to my body time to be present. And so I fall into it easily and I can meet myself there and we can sort out what needs to happen next without a million distractions clouding my vision. Now, writing it out is not going to be everyone's favorite tool to combat toxic productivity. For some, it might be a walk outdoors or baking. I would love to hear what's yours. Leave it in the comments below. Let's share our tools. Now, I have one other tip for you, but before I share it, quick invitation. I have a free private group for writers working on books where once a month I host a live event where I plan out the first third of a novel from scratch. It's super fun. It's like improv meets novel writing, and you can join this event, 30,000 words in 30 minutes. Watch Mary plan the first third of a novel from scratch at the link below this video. Okay, back to it. All right, tip number 2 for combating toxic productivity is to make sure your writing process is something that works for you and not for someone else. Toxic productivity often kicks in when we aren't honoring what actually works best for us. We aren't doing what makes life easiest for us. A recurring question I get from writers, for example, is what software should they be using? Word, Pages, the Notes app of your phone, what's best? And the real answer is that there is no best. I mean, anything that works for you works for your book. The same is true for what tools you use to write. At times my indispensable tool has been a notebook. Other times it's been a laptop. Recently in my program, I took an informal survey. I asked writers, what gets you into the flow state? What conditions? And the results were really interesting because the answer that came up the most often was writing in bed. Now, here I thought I was the only person who truly writes really well in bed. I wrote a ton of my novel Privilege in bed. So when I found that out, that other people are doing this too, I wondered if the bed thing is perhaps because we are cueing ourselves to access the dream state, which is probably like the closest state to creating that we're in outside of writing, or is it because bed is so definitively not a place where we feel pressure to get work done? Whatever it is, write where and when you find it easiest to access that flow state. And who cares if it's in bed? No one is watching you. No one is judging. Find what works for you and what feels good. Okay, if you made it this far in the video, I'm guessing maybe you're writing a book or want to write a book. And if so, I have something for you. A couple of years ago, I created the 4 notebooks method. This is my process for handwriting a novel across 4 notebooks. It's a strategy to map out your story structure in a way that doesn't lock you into an outline or suck all the freedom out of the writing process. If you'd like to learn this method and get a free digital template for writing your novel, go to the link below this video. To get the template, you just have to apply for my program, the Book Incubator. It's only 2 questions to apply. It takes under 5 minutes, and you'll get the template right away, whether you join or not. There's no pressure to enroll. So just click below and tell me a little bit about you and your book idea. I'm excited to hear from you.